this computer. Okay, so folks, we are recording right now, and our guests this evening with us for our Field of Bern LA monthly meeting for the month of February 2023 are Cindy Montoya on screen right now from Moms Demand Action. I saw in the paper you were listed as the lead survivor organizer for California, right? So thank you. And Mia Livas Porter, our endorsed candidate in 2022 for Assembly, who also is a noted gun violence prevention activist, including with Moms Demand Action. So welcome to both of you. And yeah, Mia has even prepared a little slide deck for us very kindly tonight. And so yeah, take it away, both of you. Thank you for coming. And we're looking forward to, hearing.
Thank you so much. I still need access.
Oh, did you not get access?
I think yeah.
Oh, okay. Make co-host. There, it didn't go through. Okay. So it says you're now the co-host.
It's been a hot minute since I've had to do this, so let me make sure I'm
it's okay.
Doing this the right
I get way. These. Oh no, there it is. There, it looks good.
Okay. It's and I will also share the link because some of the graphics are really tiny. So we'll try to talk through it and we will share the link as well.
Yes, just throw it in the chat and we can share it when we post if you'd like, right? We can share it if you'd like to share the link publicly.
Can you still see me? Can you still see me?
Yes, I can. I can. Yeah, I can see you. Yeah. And
okay, wasn't sure since it was my Field of Bern, thank you so much. Really, really grateful that you are wanting to hear us out and hear about gun violence prevention because, you know, Cindy and I have done this for about 5 years or more, 10 years together, this work. And it's always been a back burner issue to people. And it's not until, you know, the beginning of this year, Monterey Park, Half Moon Bay, that now it's starting to get momentum in California because we always thought we were safe. We always thought we had the strongest gun laws, which we do in the country, but that would prevent us from being harmed by gun violence. But it truly, anywhere in America, anytime, our lives can be shattered by gun violence. So disclosure, we are here as gun violence prevention activists. We are borrowing some info and graphics from Moms Demand. And then this info is not exhaustive. Truly, this could be like an hour-long presentation.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so we have a little agenda here. Cindy and I are going to share a little bit of our survivor stories and how we became activists. We'll share the definition of what a survivor is, because I know for me, when I first heard it, it was eye-opening to me. We will describe the epidemic of gun violence in America, including mass shootings, homicide, which is also known as city gun violence, suicides, the impact on our youth. We'll talk about the impact of gun violence on American life, including fiscally, financially, how it's impacting our society, and then talk about some solutions, because there is a way, if we clamor enough noise, that we can make a difference and mitigate gun violence in America, because right now we're going the wrong direction as far as finding solutions. So, hi, I'm Mia Livas Porter. I am a Moms Demand Action volunteer. I'm an Everytown Survivor Fellow. I am a gun violence survivor, and I'm a former candidate for Assembly District 52. Like most parents, when my kids were going off to school, I just wanted to make sure that they were safe. Parkland, no, let's step it back. Sandy Hook happened when my babies were 4 and 1. And then when Parkland happened and I saw these high schoolers, you know, they didn't even have a moment to rest. They had to advocate for somebody to do something to keep them safe. It made me feel like we were failing our kids, and I wanted to keep my own kids safe. So I volunteered after Parkland. What used to have maybe 2 to 4 people at Moms Demand Action meetings, that first meeting after Parkland had 400. And this is just in one one local group. And so basically I ended up volunteering for a leadership role. And at that first meeting, I felt like the wind come out of me. I heard a story similar to mine that really like shifted my world. It was about a survivor whose brother died by gun suicide. I have a brother who died by gun suicide after battling schizophrenia for 5 years. This happened 30 years ago. And like, Reggie, I heard you talking, a Filipino, I'm Filipino. We were taught what happens in the family stays in the family. Don't talk about it. And so it was a taboo, not only my brother's schizophrenia, but also his suicide. And so it became this, I always call it a rock in my shoe, like running a marathon. Sure, you can keep going, but at what a cost. And so it started impacting every aspect of my life to the point where I lost my voice. I literally like physically lost my voice as a singer. I lost my voice and feeling small and like I didn't, it just changed my whole world and shut me down. My dad died of a broken heart 3 years later. And then my brother, Danny, who found my brother's body, arrested development. He shut down. And so it's impacted my whole family. And it was only through activism that I learned to start to heal. And that's why I want to keep all of my loved ones safe. And I don't want anyone to have to go through what I went through. And that's why I became an activist. Cindy?
Okay. Hey, everyone. Trying to see if I'm on. Can you see me? Am I on? Yeah, okay. Forgive me, I'm going to read because I, can easily just go off track. So my name is Cindy Montoya. I'm really honored to be here. I'm a big Bernie fan. So I'm also a newly re-elected ADEM for District 41. So my pronouns are she, her. I live in Sierra Madre. It's just east of Pasadena, if you don't know where that is, little mountain town. I'm also the Southern California Survivor Lead for Moms Demand Action. So the daily fight and advocacy for gun violence prevention is deeply personal for me. I am a proud Chicana, and I am also a gun violence survivor, just like Mia. I'm the daughter of working class parents from La Puente, California, and I am a proud first generation college graduate from UCLA. But my amazing and selfless parents, who I can never talk enough about, Raul and Carmen, who are no longer with me, they sacrificed everything to give their 4 children a better life with dreams of a college education, and that they were both denied growing up in the racially discriminating Juan Crow era in El Paso, Texas. Yes, that is a thing, but many people do not know about that time. It was the Texas Rangers. But my parents' dream of having their oldest daughter be the first in the family to attend college was almost shattered. A few days after my high school graduation, I was awakened in the middle of the night by a man who broke into my house, went into my bedroom, and attempted to rape me with a hand over my mouth and a gun to my head. Although shots were fired as my incredibly brave mom intervened to save my life, there are a lot more details when you have a story like this, but I miraculously escaped the gunshot wounds. But those invisible wounds of trauma would remain with me to this day, and the horrible memory of that night, the terrorizing loud sounds of the gunshots, the stench of smoke and alcohol on his breath, the screams for help that would show up in my nightmares for decades would forever be imprinted into my head. It took me, again, 30 plus years, decades, to understand how surviving a violent traumatic event impacts your life physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, in every relationship afterwards that I was to have. And just as Mia said, I too did not recognize that I was a survivor until I joined Moms Demand Action and heard someone else's story. I was pulled to do something. I really wanted to advocate. I wanted to find a support group. I wanted to just find something. I'd struggled silently on my own for so long. I finally I came across Moms Demand Action, attended my first meeting. I think it's probably after Parkland as well. But you have to understand, 30 plus years ago, therapy was kind of considered taboo, especially in the Latino community. And the police at that time, they offered me nothing but accusations implying that it was my fault. And most likely that it was a boyfriend argument gone bad, which could not be further from the truth. But I was in a marginalized community, a Mexican American, highest crime rate. The local public high school at the time, Bassett High School, had the highest crime rate in all of Southern California. So again, the white police officers did not pay us much attention, did not give us any help, and even went as far as accusing me of making up this story that it was really a boyfriend argument gone bad. Unfortunately, from that day on, I would never trust another police officer again. But with therapy and the help of the Everytown Survivor Network, I took back my power. I am a thriving survivor, and I chose to honor my parents by making advocacy and activism part of my everyday life. So I'm here as many times as I can be, and to other meetings and to rallies, wherever, to share my story and get people to understand the impacts of gun violence. And again, we talk about healthcare for all, and that is, it really does, it impacts your life in every way. But yes, we need to do something. So thank you. You heard me and I call ourselves survivors. So who is a survivor of gun violence? The Everytown Survivor Network is inclusive of anyone who has personally experienced gun violence, whether you've witnessed an act of gun violence, been threatened or wounded with a gun, or had someone you know wounded or killed with a gun. And this includes, but is not limited to, gun suicides, domestic violence involving a gun, and unintentional shootings. You must remember, though, this is a self-designation. Not everybody considers themselves a survivor, and many don't even realize that they're survivors. So only the person impacted can call themselves a survivor. And it is really no one's right to judge who is a survivor and who is not a survivor. 59% of American adults or someone they know or care about have experienced gun violence in their life. Just let that sink in. 59% of American adults now. And that number is growing, unfortunately, because it is coming, it's so close to us. Why are we here? Because gun violence in America is increasing, it's not decreasing. These are today's stats according to the gunviolencearchive.org. You can see how the numbers of gun violence deaths, the gun deaths, are increasing annually. Gun violence is a growing threat that all Californians need to care about. Besides being robbed of lives, the 9,980 shootings that occur each year have a huge economic toll on our state. This is an issue impacting every American. It's not only a public safety issue, it is a public health issue. We have a right to feel safe in our schools, on our streets, in our churches, in our theaters, the concerts, our dance halls. Gun violence, unfortunately, is the great equalizer. Doesn't care about your race, your bank account, your zip code, gender, who you love, or your age. This is why we all need to care about this issue, and we need to take action now. We need to demand that our lawmakers take action and not be beholden to the gun lobby. Go ahead, Mia. Wait, I think.
Yeah, no, I couldn't get off mute. It was,
Okay.
sorry. So we're going to go over the stats of national impact of gun violence in America. And I just realized under suicide, I had a graphic of California stats, but forgive me. But let's start on the left. As you can see, the US gun homicide rate is 26 times 26 times that of other high income countries. So earlier this month, February 1 through 7, is National Gun Violence Survivor Week. And by this time, in the first month of the year, the total of gun deaths in America surpasses gun deaths in a year in any other peer country. Now, we here in California, we're aware of Monterey Park. This is on our radar because of Half Moon Bay. But mass shootings only make up 1% of gun deaths in America. And that's the part that should be startling you. Media loves the mass shootings, but it's the daily living with gun violence that we need to be addressing and trying to find solutions for. I wanted to read a couple of homicide stats. I mentioned US gun homicide rate is 26 times that of any other high income countries. 4 out of every 10 gun deaths are homicides. Access to a gun will double the risk of death by homicides, and most gun homicides are concentrated in cities. Half of all the gun homicides take place in 127 cities, which represents a quarter of the US population. And of course, these gun homicides are prevalent in racially segregated neighborhoods with high rates of poverty. And Black Americans represent the majority of gun homicide victims. In fact, Black Americans are 12 times more likely than white Americans to die by gun homicide. So if you see this graphic in the middle, that has the breakdown. I can't even see the numbers. I think it's 57 for gun suicides, but we'll share this PowerPoint with you so you can look at the stats. If we go to the other side where it says suicides, when it comes to gun violence, 2/3 of gun deaths are suicides. The US gun rate is nearly 12 times that of any other high income countries. And anything they want to blame it on, whether it's video games or mental illness or what have you, every other country has that. The difference is the easy access to guns that is in this country. And that's why this work that Cindy and I do, this is what we're trying to get at. And access to a gun triples the risk of death by suicide. If you go below the center image, domestic violence, women in the US are 28 times more likely to be killed with a gun than women in other high income countries. And right now, nearly 1 million women alive today have been shot or shot at by an intimate partner. And over 4.5 million American women have been threatened with a gun by an intimate partner. And access to a gun in a domestic violence situation makes it 5 times more likely that a woman will be killed. Can I backtrack? Suicides, I just want to paint this picture more clearly for you. Suicides with a firearm are 94% effective. By any other means, it's about 6%. Any other means. And finally, children, I'm so sorry. There we go. Finally, children and teens. Firearms have now become the leading cause of death for American children and teens under 19. Nearly 2,500 children and teens die by gun homicide every year. And for children under 13, these gun homicides most frequently occur in the home and are often connected to domestic or family violence. Black children and teens are 17 times more likely than white children and teens of the same age to die by gun homicide. And approximately 3 million American children witness gun violence every year. Now we're gonna narrow it down to California stats. Everytown has this website, everystat.org, where you can look up by state the stats. These are just a few of the statistics. Even though the link says 2019, this data was last updated July 22. So in California, 3,160 people die and 7,293 are wounded by guns in California. But we have the 35th highest rate of gun violence in the US. From 2011 to 2020, gun deaths in California went up 10% compared to 33%, which indicates that gun safety legislation does work. The stricter the gun laws in a state, the number of gun deaths decreases. And by intent, in California, half of gun deaths are suicides and 45% are homicides, compared to 59% national suicides, 38% national homicides. Cindy?
Okay, so let's talk about the economic impacts on gun violence in America. So unfortunately now we are a nation of survivors. Gun violence is a growing threat that all Californians really need to care about. The 9,980 shootings that occur each year have a huge economic toll on our state. Without a doubt, the human cost of gun violence, the people who are taken from us and the survivors whose lives are forever altered, is the most devastating. But in addition to this human impact, examining the serious economic consequences of gun violence offers a wider lens for understanding just how extensive and expensive this crisis is. You can see the slide. California has the 45th highest societal cost of gun violence in the US at $1,060 per resident each year. Gun deaths and injuries cost California $41.9 billion each year, of which $1.1 billion is paid by us, the taxpayers. Nationally, though, a staggering $557 billion figure is 5 times the nation's budget for the Department of Education, which funds preschool through college for millions of Americans. If shooting tragedies were prevented from occurring in the first place, the vast funds spent in the aftermath of gun violence could be directed toward beneficial and productive investments, such as educating the next generation. The $557 billion problem represents the lifetime cost associated with gun violence, including 3 types of cost. Immediate costs starting at the scene of a shooting, such as police investigations and medical treatment. Subsequent cost, such as treatment, long-term physical and mental health care, earnings lost to disability or death, and criminal justice cost. And cost estimates of quality of life lost over a victim's lifespan for pain and suffering of victims and their families. As survivors, families, communities, employers, and taxpayers, we all pay for the enormous costs associated with this violence, whether we own a gun or not. This daily toll is staggering. However, many of the gun violence survivors who need it most are not able to access the support due to broad exclusionary criteria and bureaucratic red tape. But lawmakers and state VOCA compensation administrators can help by 1, easing state obstacles to accessing compensation, including increasing staffing to process these applications and extending deadlines to report a crime, file a claim, and make an appeal. And 2, reforming state laws that limit eligibility based on the victim's actions during the crime, their criminal history, or cooperation with investigators, or receiving collateral compensation such as GoFundMe donations. I believe, Mia, is it 288? I believe that was the one we were fighting for that did not pass through. That is to make sure right now victims do not get compensated if their loved one had any kind of a criminal record. So they don't have access to money if anyone in their family has any kind of a criminal record, which is completely wrong. And also I worked with somebody recently who she did not speak up. The son and the brother, they were killed here in Pasadena, Northwest Pasadena, and it took a year before the victim's compensation could reach out and get them one therapy, get them a Spanish-speaking therapist, and also get them money. But when they finally, after a year, got them the money, they said they need to pay for it first and then they will get reimbursed. this family did not have the money to put it out first. So these are just ridiculous red tape type of things that are happening that we need to fight for. And I know we've been fighting for one bill and it has been shut down that will actually change this. So we need to put pressure on our lawmakers. Even if they do, they'll take away money if they find out they're receiving collateral, doing a GoFundMe donation. So they kind of subtract the money. I mean, it's just really ridiculous. What do we need to do? So we need a multi-pronged approach to multi-pronged solution, sorry about that, to ending this gun violence. What do we need? Of course, we need funding. We have found that violence interrupter programs, these are like grassroots, boots on the ground organizations that are interrupting youth that are more prone to get into gangs. So they're reaching out to youth by the time they're like in elementary school, in middle school. These interrupters work. These proven programs, and we have this, I don't have the stats right now on me, but they work because in our Black and brown communities, especially, they do not trust somebody coming in and saying, we've got a great program for you, come to our after school program and we can help you. So if you have people that have already been, our interrupters have spent time in prison, have been in gangs themselves. So they are now going back and doing work, their activism work to prevent. They do not want the younger generation to follow in their footsteps. So these programs work. And we've been fighting.
I just wanted to add, I know these programs started in Oakland and in Richmond, and they were proven to decrease gun violence on the streets by up to 50%. So this is why we need more funding, which Cindy will explain, for these CalVIP programs.
Yeah, so Mia just mentioned the CalVIP programs, California Violence Intervention programs. So we are constantly fighting, and we've been able to get more money in California for these programs. And now we're fighting we're fighting for a bill for sustaining these programs, because every year these organizations have to go and fight once again for more money. And it's just, they're spending more time on paperwork than actually, on the streets doing the work. But the good news is in 2019, USIM increased the budget from 9 million to 30 million. And then in 2020, our budget for CalVIP programs increased to 200 million over 3 years. This was a huge success. And one of the programs one of the CalVIP partners, recipients, is actually a LA partner, and they're called Urban Peace Institute. And we've been working with them, partnering with them, just giving them the support. We don't want to come in and tell them what to do. Really, we're just taking their lead. So we show up when they need help. When they're trying to raise money, we are there. When they are marching, we're there. We actually showed up for their incredible film about their peacemakers, their violence interrupters, which was incredibly impactful. So this is one of our partners that we will continue to lift up, continue to help out, help raise money for them. You can check them out, the Urban Peace Institute, doing really great work. Another solution, accountability. We have to hold parents accountable for children's access to guns. We have to hold the gun industry accountable for marketing to children. Just like the cigarette industry was held accountable, we need to do the same thing now. We need to decrease access. So right now, I don't know if you've heard of ghost guns. Ghost guns, you can basically order online different parts and build your own ghost guns. There are no serial numbers. There's no way of tracking who is getting these ghost guns. Big problem. We're also fighting this year in our advocacy day for a bill to help stop the ghost gun sales. I believe there's been a couple of shootings already that have used, especially actually in South LA right now. Most of the homicides, or a high number of homicides, have been with ghost guns. Safe storage. We really need to push that we know there are guns, and we can't really come out, even though I personally think the problem is the guns here. We kind of have to tread lightly on that. And we know that if you can at least store your guns safely, then that will save lives. Education. We have laws that people don't know about. The red flag law. So let's talk about the red flag law. People can't use intervention tools that they don't know about. 2/3 of Californians still don't know about this law. So it is imperative to step up efforts to fully implement this law that has enormous potential to decrease firearm suicides and mass shootings. The law is a critical tool in the tool belt that gives family members a way to ensure their loved ones don't harm themselves or others. So more awareness is needed. The vast majority of petitions for GVROs, that's another name, gun violence restraining orders, it's also the same thing as a red flag law, which we have here in California. Now in California, they come from law enforcement and not from family members. So I just saw a stat that only 4% of gun violence restraining order petitions are from family members, which is an indicator that this is not as accessible as it ought to be. And if you don't know what a red flag law, it means that if you recognize or somebody has a gun at their house, and you believe that they are either a danger to themselves or to others, then you can go, usually it's through law enforcement, and that's what I'm talking about. We need to figure out how Californians can just do this in the different ways if they don't trust law enforcement. And they can get a restraining order, a temporary restraining order, to have that gun removed for, I believe it's 72 hours, maybe? Is that right, Mia? Is it 72?
21 days is what I remember.
Oh, 21 days. Okay. So I think there's one, depends on their background.
Until they appear before a judge.
Right. Okay. So anyway, so that is, we need to educate people, because I'm sure probably a lot of you haven't heard about these red flag laws. But, and then at the same time, we need to make sure that the resource is culturally competent. 21 days. Thank you, Melanie. That it is culturally competent. Not everyone feels comfortable going to the police for help for the tools. And also they are not always available to multilingual populations. But the Hope and Heal Fund is working with the California state government right now. They receive money to address cultural competency. And we look forward to learning more about how we can support their work. We need to educate parents. We have a Be Smart campaign where we have volunteers go into schools, PTA meetings, and tell them about gun violence prevention and what they can do, that they can not be afraid to ask family members if their children are going over for a play date, for a birthday party. They need to ask, my child is allergic to peanuts, or do you have a pool? Do you have guns? Really just common sense things. And then also about safe storage. So that's our Be Smart campaign. We also have a 988 campaign. This is new. It's a 3-digit, Mia's going to be spearheading this, actually getting the word out. It's a new 3-digit national dialing, texting, and chat code crisis hotline for anyone experiencing suicidal thoughts or mental health related crises. The dial code Lifeline will increase accessibility to life-saving interventions and resources. And once again, Mia said the stat, suicide accounts for nearly 2/3 of all gun deaths in the US. And most people who attempt suicide do not die unless they use a gun. Okay, Mia.
Okay, as Cindy had mentioned, with our violence interrupter partners, we take legislative action as well. We support them, and that's why this partnership, we're basically centering the voices most impacted. So on that note, with Moms Demand Action, we're having an advocacy day coming up on Monday, May 13th. Basically spending 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. meeting with electeds. And we have a specific list of bills that we want to highlight with them this year. SB 2 is authored by Portantino, which will strengthen concealed carry laws. It's the Bruin law that the Supreme Court ruled that about concealed carry. And so we want to take it on local level or statewide level and basically make sure that it within our state that we specify and tighten up the concealed carry laws. AB 28 is Jesse Gabriel's bill. Love this bill. It is a tax on firearms and ammo, and money from this tax will fund the violence interrupter programs because we don't want to have to be asking every few years for millions of dollars. And if you're going to own guns and ammo, then fund the programs that are going to keep people safe on the streets. So if you want to join us in Sacramento, if you want to get involved with Moms Demand Action, you can text READY at 64433. It truly will take all hands on deck demanding change. We need to be the squeaky wheels demanding that our legislators fight for gun safety legislation, life-saving gun safety legislation. And one final tangent, as a candidate, you know, it was very interesting to me that I would have many people, several people come up to my face and say, all you care about is gun violence prevention. Nobody cares about that. Saying that to a survivor is like, I mean, it was appalling. But this unfortunately has been the back burner issue. And it's not something that we can afford to not pay attention to. It's the epidemic before the pandemic. And right now, please keep in mind that taking a stance on gun violence is a winnable issue. In 2017, Democratic candidates were very afraid to take a stance on gun violence prevention. They wanted that A rating from the NRA. All of that changed in 2018 to where now Democratic candidates in every level of government will talk about gun violence prevention. It is an issue that, especially, you know, with seeing the impact after COVID on our families, on our children, on our seniors, on veterans, seeing how it's only increasing after our numbers are increasing. We need to hold all levels of government accountable to taking a stance on gun violence prevention, because truly together we can end this epidemic. I know it went a little long, so thank you. But if you have any questions, oh wait, hold on. There we go.
Yeah, well, no, thank you, Mia. That was, and Cindy, both of you. That was very good and thorough. You know, just for those of you listening to the recording later, those of you here tonight, you know, the main reason, right, we booked Mia and Cindy, I should have said this at the top, was of course in the wake of the Monterey Park massacre, but Monterey Park is not a singular event, unfortunately. But what so upset me, among others, was that the politicians were talking very little, if any, about guns, and that the problem is guns, and that we need to, you know, get gun safety and gun control. And so, you know, they didn't invite Mia or Cindy to speak at the vigils. They themselves, none of the politicians except one, a city clerk in Monterey Park, said anything about guns at any of these vigils. And so, you know, we wanted to give voice to Mia and Cindy and the real issue at hand here, which is guns. So thank you, Mia and Cindy, for doing that. And we're glad we were able to give you this space, you know, to share with us and to share with everyone who will then later see this online. But yeah, we have time maybe for a couple questions. We are running close to our 8:30 usual or or goal end time, but we actually rarely meet that lately. But yeah, if you have some questions here, folks, if you want to raise your hand or just speak up, we have time for at least probably a couple. I don't want to just end it if you've got a question.
Hey,
Okay.
Paul, I
Yes,
don't know.
yes, indeed. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I heard Reggie talking earlier. Just this week, I was at a press conference with Congresswoman Chu and Secretary Becerra, and they
I
came
saw
in
that.
to
Yeah.
talk about the Monterey Park, and it's mostly a lot of the leaders, the organizations, the AAPI community coming in just to kind of share like what happened after the shooting. And it was eye-opening for me to see the struggle. And what I took from that is, unfortunately, we now we have to be ready. Like, we have to be ready with resources in different languages. That was a problem. And people were just kind of scrambling to find, like, well, who do we go to? How do we find the answer? The same thing, these survivors didn't, some of them immigrants they don't trust, they're not going to trust law enforcement. And so they needed, the pastor, whoever were different organizations, they just came in, but to hear their struggle and phone call after phone call, just to find keys that were left, in the scrambling after the event, just from law enforcement. Oh, you need to call this person, you need to call this person, you need to call this person. And the way, you're so traumatized, and the work that they have to go through to just get compensation, mental health, just support, but from, culturally competent support. That's why I'm really talking about culturally competent support. So I think, unfortunately, we have to have, each city needs to have these resources just ready, just at the tip of their fingers. They can't, and that's what they were realizing, that they weren't ready. And unfortunately, we have to be ready. So just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll throw in though, what saddened me when I read the newspaper article, it did mention you, but it too, I've been so disappointed in much of the media coverage of Monterey Park. It too did not, though, actually mention guns, other than mentioning your presence. Didn't quote you. It discussed lots of other things, but not about guns. And that's, of course, why we're here and why that massacre happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Any other questions, comments? I have some, but I don't want to monopolize. And if somebody else has one or two.
Can we offer our emails if anyone
Yeah,
has?
please, if you would put it in the chat, at least orally, you can certainly. Yeah, we already have announced Moms Demand Action, and you were inviting folks to text READY to 64433 to get on the Moms Demand Action text alert list. And you can put any personal contact you wish in the chat box for our members. Yeah, but Moms Demand Action, for those of you listening at home, is the organization that Mia Livas Porter here and Cindy Montoya, our guests for this evening, are representing and doing advocacy. And so we invite and encourage you to get involved in this issue that as was discussed tonight and other venues, that tends to sometimes fall to the back burner between massacres. And that's one of the horrible sadnesses of this horrific epidemic, as Mia characterized it, right? That mass shootings only represent about 1% of the gun violence in America. It's the other 99% that happens daily, out of sight, out of mind to most Americans, and except, as one of those statistics showed, right? What was it? 50-some% of Americans have been affected by gun violence in some way, shape, or form. And it appears that we're, on track to keep increasing that with the increasing number of gun deaths, right, and injuries since the Heller decision, and since it seems every Democratic president gets elected, right? The gun nuts sales fly through the roof. The pandemic caused the gun sales to shoot up even more. We've got to stop this madness. I tell people, right, that the biggest mental illness in all this is America's addiction and obsession with guns, and that's the real mental illness we've got to get rid of and heal from.
And we're actually even impacting other countries. Mexico gets the majority of its guns from us being passed across the border. And so we are literally the laughing stock of the world when it comes, that people cannot understand what is happening in America when it comes to gun violence.
Yeah, those gun manufacturers made in the USA, we are exporting their weapons and their violence to the world, and not good. It's got to change, and it's up to us to change it, right? We the people, we can do it, and we are a democracy, or at least we're supposed to be. And so yeah, I don't see hands up or hear voices. So if not, I suppose we can thank Mia and Cindy for coming and joining us and doing an excellent and thorough job to educate us and enlighten us, inform us about some of statistics of gun violence and the costs and the tragedies. And thanks for sharing your stories. I probably should have, put a TW or CW trigger warning, content warning orally.
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry.
No. I will. When I post this online, thank you for sharing your stories. That can't be easy at all to do. To have to retell that trauma. But thank you for doing that, because sharing stories does help. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for coming. And okay. I see a hand up. Reggie, did you want to ask a question or say something?
Oh yeah, this is for me and Cindy, and thank you for really putting, giving us your stories and being vulnerable, but giving us a whole lot of good information. Earlier I mentioned about tying in, bringing up Medicare for all for people who had to suffer gun violence. Because, why should they have to go, suffer financial, problems because of somebody's mistakes? And I just wanted to, you probably mentioned it, concerning the cost of gun violence. Have you seen anybody suffer financially because they had to because of medical bills? They were victims of gun violence, they survived gun violence, but then now they have to go through the whole medical system. And was their insurance able to cover them or that sort of thing?
It's a great question. Yeah, Cindy and I actually, we both did work with survivors and have befriended and heard many survivor stories. And like we said, if there's 120 per Americans a day, I don't even know if we gave that stat. 120 Americans a day are dying by gun violence, yet 2 times or 3 times as many, 300 are wounded by gun violence. And Cindy and I have a friend who was the first shot at Columbine, and he has fallen through the cracks during COVID. He was at a nursing home falling through the cracks, and that's the thing that people forget. And he cannot get a break, and you think about the pain that they live with every day, and no, they're not getting a break or support, and it is a huge financial burden. Yeah, I know one of the bills that it's Cindy, I think it's different from the one you were mentioning. One of the bills was a victim compensation fund for people who were shot by police, taking it out of the police budget. But as of right now, we're failing those impacted by gun violence.
Yeah, I think you probably heard the story that somebody was, one of the Monterey Park survivors was talking to Gavin Newsom and saying, hey, I just want to get my hospital bill paid. I don't know, it was a tweet or something like that, and it was kind of viral for a while. I don't know its veracity, but I mean, maybe some other people have more information than I do, but I'm also thinking of them. And when Cindy was talking about, yeah, language justice, that would be really good too, to reach people. You need to reach people in different countries. I think I saw another statistic, and Mia, you probably mentioned it earlier. Gun violence affects people of color disproportionately, and yeah, so language justice does play a role in this too, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And yeah, it is again, the mental and financial. And I could just say from my family experiencing that. My dad worked graveyard, so he wasn't there. My brother worked late night, so he wasn't there. But they had almost paid off their house, and we had to move because I was so worried that the gunman would find me again. And we had to, they basically just sold their house and we moved away. Yeah, and it affected the work. It affected my brother's jobs. It affected my jobs. It affected my dad's work, and so you do. So it affects you economically in ways that people don't really even know it would affect you. So, but yes, so that's why healthcare for all, gun violence intersects these issues that, we fight for.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks, Reggie. Okay, if there's maybe one other person who might have something, I was just going to mention real quick. When we tabulate, right, the cost of gun violence, the annual cost, it would be so cheap to just do a massive nationwide gun buyback. It would be so, it's penny wise and pound foolish to do otherwise. We could do it, pay even, I thought, $1,000 a gun. We have 400 million guns, more guns than people in the United States of America. You give 1,000 for each, you're at 400 billion. And what the annual cost of gun violence is 500 and something billion. Mm-hmm. Just a one-time massive gun buyback in which we theoretically might be able to get all the guns would just be less than 1 year the cost of gun violence.
But that's not going to happen because the NRA's mission is sell more.
Right.
And while they have their chokehold on Republican electeds, even Republican gun owners understand the importance of like 94% universal background checks, basic sensible gun laws, and they see any step as like it's going to infringe and compromise their profit line.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that I've seen lately, right, attempts to force insurance coverage, right, and different mm-hmm. things like that to raise the cost for these these guns. There was a person at one of these vigils, I think, who told me that they got so angry at somebody, this was decades ago, that they went out and they were going to buy a gun and they were going to do that person in, and they went to do it and they didn't have the money. It was too expensive. And so, yeah, if we can raise the cost, we could maybe save some lives too. But yeah, there's so many things we could and should do. thank you, Mia and Cindy for helping to lead us in the right direction and get that done through Moms Demand Action. So I think with that, we'll call it a wrap for tonight, and to be continued, in the unfortunately months and years ahead, struggling on this issue and trying to stop the violence, right?
Thank you so much, Paul, for
Yeah.
having us.
No, thank you for coming, Cindy, and we'll be in touch. So yeah, folks, again, 64433, text ready to that number, 64433, to join the Moms Demand Action text alert group. So, okay, thanks, Cindy and Mia. You can stick around. I'll stop the recording now, and we'll post this online.